Countdown in sound. You invite director which one? Control Canada.
Good day, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all today on behalf of KILA to the second session of KILA Urban Dialogues. I am Irene Anton, Research Fellow at KILA, and I am delighted to be your host today. As we gather here virtually, we are joined by a very diverse group of experts, practitioners, and concerned citizens. The KILA Urban Dialogue series has been thoughtfully crafted to serve as a dynamic platform for real-time global knowledge exchange. It could also stimulate debates on crucial topics that are instrumental in reshaping Kerala's urban landscape. The theme of today's session, Urbanization and Solid Waste Management, holds great significance. As Kerala continues to urbanize at a rapid pace, managing solid waste becomes an increasingly complex challenge. And before we proceed to the main session, I would like to extend a warm welcome to the Honorable Minister Sri M.V. Rajesh, Secretary and senior officials from LSGD Kerala, mayors, corporation secretaries, chairpersons, and elected representatives of urban local bodies. I extend my warm welcome to the directors and representatives of national academic institutions and global policy partners. And we are very fortunate to have with us today Mr. Thierry Martin, Senior Urban Development Specialist from World Bank, as the key speaker to share his insights, emphasizing successful international case studies on solid waste management and its relevance to India's unique context. Thank you, sir, for dedicating your precious time to join us today. And joining as discussants, we have two esteemed guests to add depth and practicality to our discussion through their first-hand experiences. First, we have Srimati Prasanna Ernest, the Honorable Mayor of Kollam Municipal Corporation. Welcome, madam. And our second discussant for the session is Sri U.V. Jose IAS, the Deputy Director of Kerala Solid Waste Management Project. Welcome, sir. Special welcome to Dr. Joy Ellerman, Director General KILA, whose vision and leadership have been instrumental in shaping KILA's novel initiatives towards sustainable urban development. Next, I'd like to welcome Urban Chair Professor Dr. Ajit Kaliyat, who will be convening the session on behalf of our director. Over to you, sir, for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Irene. Once again, welcome the key speaker for today, Mr. Thierry Martin, and our two esteemed discussants, Honorable Mayor of Kollam, Srimati Prasanna Ernest, as well as Mr. U.V. Jose IAS retired, who is also the Deputy Project Director of the Kerala Solid Waste Management Project. So we are convening the second edition with a theme on urbanization and waste management, which is one of the most challenging problem in contemporary Kerala. നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിലെ ഏറ്റവും അധികം നഗരവൽക്കരണവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടുകൊണ്ടുള്ള ഏറ്റവും വലിയ പ്രശ്നങ്ങളിൽ ഒരെണ്ണമാണ് ഈ വേസ്റ്റ് മാനേജ്മെന്റിന്റെ ഇഷ്യൂ. അത് കൃത്യമായി മനസ്സിലാക്കാനും അതിന് പറ്റുന്ന രീതിയിൽ ആവശ്യമുള്ള രീതിയിൽ നമ്മുടെ പ്ലാനിംഗ് ആൻഡ് ഗവേണൻസ് സംവിധാനങ്ങളെ, ടെക്നോളജി ഓപ്ഷൻസിനെ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ആവശ്യമുള്ള ഫൈനാൻസിങ് സൊല്യൂഷൻസിനെ ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനുള്ള ഒരു പുനർവിചിന്തനം നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യമാണ്. അതിന് പറ്റുന്ന തരത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു ഇടപെടലുകൾ ആവശ്യമാണ്. തദ്ദേശ ഭരണ സംവിധാനത്തിന്റെ ലീഡർഷിപ്പിൽ ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ കേരളത്തിൽ നടക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിലും പലതും നമുക്ക് ഇനിയും ഒരു മെച്യൂർ ആയിട്ടുള്ള വേസ്റ്റ് മാനേജ്മെന്റ് സിസ്റ്റത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കാൻ ഇടപെടലുകൾ ആവശ്യമാണ്. ആ സാഹചര്യത്തിലാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇന്നും ഇവിടെ ഈ ഒരു വിഷയം ഫോക്കസ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു ചർച്ച ഓർഗനൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഇതിൽ നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യമുള്ള ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസസ് പങ്കുവെക്കുന്നതിന് നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ ഇന്ന് വേൾഡ് ബാങ്കിന്റെ സീനിയർ അർബൻ ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ് സ്പെഷ്യലിസ്റ്റ് ആയ ശ്രീ തിയറി മാർട്ടിൻ ഉണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ചർച്ചയ്ക്ക് ശേഷം കേരളത്തിലെ അനുഭവങ്ങളും അതുപോലെ മറ്റ് പ്രദേശങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള അനുഭവങ്ങളുടെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ കേരളത്തിൽ എന്ത് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും എന്നുള്ളതിനെ കുറിച്ച് നമ്മളോട് സംസാരിക്കുന്നതിന് നമ്മുടെ ബഹുമാന്യായ കൊല്ലം മേയറും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ കേരള സോളിഡ് വേസ്റ്റ് മാനേജ്മെന്റ് പ്രോജക്ടിന്റെ ഡെപ്യൂട്ടി പ്രോജക്ട് ഡയറക്ടറായ യു.വി. ജോസും സാറും നമ്മുടെ കൂടെയുണ്ട്. ഇത് ഒരു 30 എഡിഷൻസ് ഉള്ള ഒരു പ്രോഗ്രാമായാണ് നമ്മൾ വിഭാവനം ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. 2023 May 17, the first edition was officially launched by Honorable Minister for Local Self-Government, Shri M.B. Rajesh. Since then, we have been in conversation with various national and global partners, the leading national academic partners who are working in the realm of urban planning, urban governance, and all associated areas, including technology, such as Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, and Indian Institute of Technology, Schools of Planning and Architecture, and National Institute of Technology, National Institute of Design are all our partners. Similarly, the ideas that we collectively generate here through this hybrid mode, it also has a relevance for other communities and other regions around the world. So global policy partners, starting from World Bank and UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute, UNICEF, AFD, and KFW, as well as Global Designing Cities Initiative, we expect them to kind of constantly help us in nurturing this dialogue series and also give us feedback as and when there are relevant themes, so that these generated ideas, these new knowledge that we collectively produce will also have relevance for other regions and other territories. Similarly, we will also be able to learn from their collective expertise and wisdom. What are the best models that Kerala can adopt? Kerala can also deploy to make it a much more robust urban society, where spatial intelligence helps us steers most of our actions. We are also able to evolve and become a society which is much more resilient, particularly since we are battling the challenges of climate change, as well as progressing into a multi-ethnic, multilinguistic society. So there are a range of issues and challenges which Kerala has to deal, as it has progressed into a rapidly urbanizing society. We are soon going to be about 90 to 93% urbanized society, and we will need to kind of collect evidences from various parts of the world. So today's dialogue is dedicated to urbanization and waste management. Once again, let me thank all the participants here, the speakers, as well as those who are joining us here in the platform, as well as colleagues and friends who are joining and watching this program through our YouTube as well as Facebook platform. So without taking much of time, I would like to request Irene to kindly introduce the speakers, and then we can proceed to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for setting the context. And we have planned today's session as a panel discussion, which will be followed by a Q&A session at the end. The participants can avail the Zoom chat box to raise questions during the discussion. ഇന്നത്തെ ചർച്ച ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലായിരിക്കും പുരോഗമിക്കുന്നത്. ചർച്ചയുടെ ഒരു സാരാംശം മലയാളത്തിൽ പിന്നീട് നൽകുന്നതായിരിക്കും. Now, before we begin our session, let me briefly introduce our panelists. Key speaker, Mr. Thierry Martin, is a senior urban development specialist, supporting teams and clients in preparation and implementation of waste management projects and leading sector dialogues with government agencies with the objective of developing the waste management engagement focusing on resilience and sustainability. His experience includes the transformation of the waste sector in more than 50 countries worldwide. He has also contributed to sector reform and adaptation, authoring papers and reports on countries and cities most vulnerable to climate change. Our second discussant, Honorable Mayor Srimati Prasanna Ernest, has been the Mayor of Kollam since December 2020. This is her second term as Mayor of Kollam. And other than mayorship, she has also been the chairperson of the standing committees on tax appeal and health. And she has also served as the secretary of KILA State Child Welfare Committee. In this term, Mayor has been championing the cause of biodiversity in Kollam. Under her visionary leadership, Kollam has been working to become a biodiverse city. This, along with mainstreaming green skills and green jobs, will lead Kollam to be a sustainable and circular economy. The second discussant, Shri UV Jose Sir, IAS, is currently the Deputy Project Director of World Bank, funded by Kerala Solid. Is currently the Deputy Project Director of Kerala Solid Waste Management Project, which is funded by World Bank. Mr. Jose is a civil engineer with an MBA and a master's degree in regional planning from School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi, and has done the Executive Development Institute in Tourism course at the University of Hawaii in USA. Through innovative development strategies, he has contributed significantly in positioning Kerala as a leading tourist destination in the country. Now I invite Mr. Thierry M. Martin for the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Irene. And thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you for inviting me. Very pleased to once again try to explain what the challenges are in the waste sector, specifically in India. In this presentation, which I'm going to try to keep short, I think I want to try to keep this presentation about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not going to address specifically the challenges of KILA. I think everybody is fully aware of the situation and can relate to the situation in different ways, according to the size of the city they're in, and the strategies they can develop as part of the planning process. I'm only going to look at what I would call good practices through three case studies internationally, not really in relation with India in this case, but just to provide an example of what can be done in different places at different scales and in various segments of the sector. I have a presentation that I would like to share. So let me bring this presentation up. Please confirm that you can all see it.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, we can, Thierry.
Perfect. If anything happens, if the sound or the visual is not working, please let me know during the presentation, and I will make sure that everyone can follow. So let me start. I've got three case studies, but before we dive in these case studies, I will start with what we call the development bans in the sector. It's a new concept to show that the progress that you can implement in the waste sector is not fully linear. There are some choices you can make, but is still a continuous process, which means you cannot go from a very basic system to a very modern system in one go. You have to follow a sequence, and that progress is really important to understand. It's like when you build a wall, you cannot go from the foundations directly to a finished wall. You've got to lay the bricks and attain the goals progressively until you reach what you feel would be the, let's say, the perfect system, or the system that is fit for the context you're in. After that, I've got three cases. One case is on the integrated facility. The other case is on modern landfills. And the last case is on tariffs and cost recovery to finance a modern waste management system. So let me start. On the development bans, that's a new concept. I mean, it came up in 2020 and was developed by researchers in the in the sector of waste management, or in the realm of waste management. And what it shows is that the sector at different degree of development will belong to what these researchers call development bands. And these development bands go from DB1. The DB1 that you saw is represented as a tree, but the roots of the tree are when there is a awareness that something has to be done in the sector, but there is very little in place. And this goes up through DB4. I mean, for example, DB4 is the trunk, and the trunk shows the core functions. When the system is in place, is what is holding the system. So you have collection, transportation, disposal, when the basic core functions are in place. And the DB0 would be the perfect stage where you would have zero waste, zero residual waste in the system. Everything could be treated as a resource. Obviously, that DB0 is the ultimate goal and doesn't exist so far anywhere on this planet. So obviously, I will not be able to showcase any system that would have achieved DB0. But DB0 gives an objective for everyone to strive to attain. So, I mean, I know I don't want to get into that concept too deeply, but I want everyone to understand here that you cannot go from, in this case, DB1 to DB0 in one go. You'll have to go through steps. You'll have to go from DB1 to DB3 or DB1 to DB2, then DB4, DB5, and that's transition is realized by implementing steps at the institutional level, steps at the technical level, steps at the financial level, just so that you have a progression in the evolution of that sector towards DB0. And the new concept of development bands is interesting because it shows that the progression is not linear. It means you can choose to branch off at some point towards a, let's say, more, let's talk about KILA, more centralized, more decentralized system. You can choose between working at household level. You can choose working at more of a centralized level after the transfer or the disposal to try to recover value and divert waste. But ultimately, you will end up going to DB0. And that sort of evolution is new because before there was one single linear model and you were following steps, and modernization would probably be seen as one single pathway. In this case, there are different pathways, there are different branches you can take, and that's symbolized by the tree. What does that mean really for today's discussion is that there is no single way to achieve a good workable waste management system. There are choices to be made. There are different possibilities. There are different options that you can implement. And that's very important, meaning that a system that works somewhere in Asia may not be directly be made the same choices according to the same choices somewhere else. And everyone can design, every city can design, every state can design its own way to achieve DB0, a zero waste system. Let's get to the case studies. So I started with the, let's say, largest infrastructure, just to show you what's been done when you want to fully centralize and industrialize a waste management system. Why am I presenting this? I think it relates to the introduction by Dr. Ajit. India is urbanizing very fast. There are already some of the largest, if not the largest, megacities in the world. In such situations, the volumes of waste to treat every day, the land required to accommodate for the different facilities, the transportation needed, or the logistics needed to transport the waste from the producers to the treatment facilities to the disposal facilities is immense. So there could be a need in these large cities, let's say 1 million+ cities, for a centralized system. And that's the choice that was made in Marseille in France to lower the let's say, logistics and lower the footprint, the physical footprint of the facilities to treat waste by centralizing all the different plants into one single facility. So how does it work? About 1 million households or 1 million population are proposed with 2 bins. One bin is mixed waste and the other bin is dry recyclables. Glass is not included. A lot of the, let's say, paper is not accepted in the yellow bin. This is only dry waste. So that dry waste in the yellow bin goes to a classic material recycling facility, very much like what you would encounter in KILA, such as the MCF and RF system. No question. Now, what happens to the rest? Organics, non-dry recyclable items, etc., etc. Well, this is sent to a city-based transfer facility and put into a train. That train uses the regular train network, but is specific to waste. And it's actually containers that were specifically designed to contain waste and ship that waste directly to an automated sorting unit that will separate the dry or the remaining recyclables, the organic fraction, as you can see, and the high calorific value fraction. And within that plant, after that, we've got, let's say, the classic way to sort waste and sell it for the recyclables. Recyclables in this case are mostly metals and some plastics. Methanize and compost the biodegradable fraction and sent to a modern waste to energy thermal-based treatment of the high calorific value fraction. So in my opinion, this is the epitome of what industrial level centralized system would look like. I'm not saying it's a good model, and we will see why. We will see why this may not be the right choice everywhere, including for France. So a couple figures. In this case, that process allows for, and you see it in the key figures down there, to serve about 1 million plus population. You only have 10% rejects, which is good performance, you must admit. It extracts almost all recyclables. I mean, everything that has value in there is actually valorized according to the value it possesses. I mean, the streams with material value are sent for recycling. The streams with calorific value are sent for incineration. So everything is taken care of in a very scientific manner, so to say. The waste is transported by train. Those trains are electric. So you can imagine that this allows for removing a huge amount of waste trucks from the road. And that's a significant improvement as compared to the previous system. The 2 trains are equipped with 135 containers. These containers are basically the trucks that are mounted on train cars. And they allow for transporting the waste without absolutely no impact on the population, because these containers are compacted and fully enclosed. There is about 1,100 tons per day. The amount of biogas generated from the methanation process from the biodegradable fraction is 7 million cubic meters. The amount of electricity generated is 210 gigawatt hour, which is about, I think, the electrical consumption of a city of about 100,000 population. So you see that in this case, 1 million plus population waste generation allows for generating electricity for about 10% of that population, which is not a negligible return in terms of energy. And there is 20,000 tons of compost, agricultural grade, generated every year. So, not mentioning also that it allows for reducing the carbon footprint because everything is enclosed, there is no fermentation, you take trucks off the road and you reduce by 45,000 metric tons of CO2 or GHG CO2 equivalent every year. So you may think, okay, this is the solution. Let's build a facility like this, and the problem of treatment and disposal will be solved. Well, it's not the case, because the drawback, like in every centralized, industrialized system, is the cost per ton. In this case, to, let's say, run that system, the cost is around $230, $240 million a year. I give here an idea, which is about 20% above national average, if not 30% above national average. So we have here, even in its own context, we have an outlier. We have a plant that, and a system that is very well designed, that is a great piece of engineering, but in return is costing 30% more than the national average. So that's a political choice, that's a financial and social choice that was made for basically environmental reasons. But that cost has to be borne by someone. And that cost, as you can see, and that's where I'm getting with these pie charts, is on the left, the revenues. You see that the blue portion here is user charges. So that system, 90% of the cost, which once again is about 30% of the national average, is borne by users themselves. There's basically no revenues, very minor revenues from recyclables. We see here that it's only 1.3%, including the sales of electricity. Commercial users, those are the industries that actually pay to access that disposal facility, but this only account for 11% of the revenues. So expenditures and costs in this case are mainly borne by users, by people. And in that sense, building a huge industrial facility, not achieving more revenues through natural streams, such as proceeds of sales of electricity or recyclables, is sort of a political choice that may not be fully fiscally sustainable. So in terms of expenditures, I'm not sure if this is very interesting, but that gives you an idea of the fact that revenues and expenditures are balanced. There is a perfect balance between the two. Obviously, what costs the most is the technical operational costs, and right after that are the salaries. The rest is about 10% or less. So I calculated for you the cost per capita. So the cost per capita of such a system is 16,000 rupees per year. That's the cost of capita. So you see that we have an extremely costly system when divided by the number of people. The cost per ton is even higher because a person generates typically in this area about 400 kilos. That's 0.5 ton of waste per day, per year. So we have a cost per ton of 35,000 Indian rupees. Just to give you a base for comparison. And I think over India, the average cost per capita, I think, is probably in the range of 1,000 to 2,000 Indian rupees per year. So we are much lower than this bracket. I'm showing some pictures here just to show you that we're definitely talking high-end and very modern engineering and design. So at the front here, you see the cars and the train. That train comes twice a day to bring waste in closed containers that you see, and the train goes back, reloads, and brings back more waste. At the back, you see the facility itself. So this is the inside. So the unloading of the train is done into a fully enclosed facility, which means when unloading, you don't have any smell or any waste blowing outside. And you see here at the back, let me see if I can point. I'm not sure I can, but you see a container being unloaded, and you see the train waiting here. This is the tipping pit. You see the containers being unloaded in the tipping pit, and that waste being then mixed and reloaded into a feeding hopper that is going to go through the automated sorting process. This is the automated sorting process. That sorting process has optical sorting, is able to divide plastic fractions according to the type of polymer, can remove different sort of metals, and also remove selectively the organic fraction. So we have probably the top of the, let's say, status in terms of engineering for sorting and processing waste. This is the waste to energy part. So the high calorific value fraction goes into an incinerator. That's very classic. There's heat recovery, and that heat is used for neighboring industries. This is the methanation process. So you see in these two tanks, the biodegradable fraction or the wet fraction goes into these big tanks, generates methane, and that methane gets stored into that big tank, that round tank that you see at the forefront here. After that, the sludge, after methanation, is dried. Here you see it on the picture on the right, to generate compost, not under the form of sludge, but under the form of a, let's say, dry powder that can be readily transported and used as a fertilizer. This is the turbines to generate electricity. So you see now from A to Z that plant is fully integrated and is basically a big industrial plant. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is that integrated facilities are capital intensive. I mean, the investment for this was in the range of $500 million. So you can imagine the amount of capital you need to build such a facility. It was done under the form of a PPP for a duration of 20 years, sorry. So the actual capital was provided in its vast majority by the private sector. And that money is actually given back or paid back to the private sector through specific fees. And those fees for the user, like said, are probably for one household every year in the range of 200 or 300 US dollars as a user charge. So that's quite a large amount of money as compared to what is affordable in many Asian countries. So robust financing system must be in place. The development of such facilities is always based on a PPP. And what are the advantages is that integrated facilities require less land, less transportation, and typically generate a little bit less greenhouse gas. But that is definitely an extreme. So let's go back to, let's say, more specific aspects that probably are more implementable in the context of KILA. What I want to show here is advanced landfilling, and I'm basing this case, I'm presenting the case of a city of about 600,000 population in Morocco, in North Africa. that wanted to switch from dump site disposal to landfill disposal. And they looked at the different options in terms of landfilling and found that advanced landfilling equipped with, let's say, modern equipment for capturing landfill gas, for collecting leachate was probably the best and the most economical solution for them at the stage of development they are in. And I think that is the right thinking. They looked at what was their situation, what was their ability to finance a solid waste management system. They thought, okay, the integrated facility, industrialized facilities that we just saw is probably not affordable. It's not sustainable for us. So what else can we do? Something that is safe, something that is environmentally and socially sustainable. And so they went for a advanced landfilling. So you see that little diagram here, that little drawing. Advanced landfilling is basically creating a facility where you can store waste safely for a certain period of time, allow that waste to decompose, capture the gas that comes out of it, capture the liquids coming out of that waste deposit, and treating it so that there is absolutely no interaction with the environment or the communities around it. So that city is called Meknes. That city of Meknes actually had in 2013 and 14 a huge dump site that they had been operating for more than 40 years. You see the sprawl of that dump site. I mean, it was engulfing agricultural areas. It was engulfing, here you see all the electrical network, roads. I mean, it was getting completely out of control. So they decided to close and reclaim it. You see the picture on the right, and to actually build a new modern facility nearby. That's what you see at the bottom. For this, once again, they used a design, build, operate system. It's a PPP. They did not have to incur the capital costs associated with the construction. It was devolved to a private firm that did the construction and the operation under a contract for 20 years. And the cost per ton is about $25 US dollars levelized over that period of 20 years. So 25 US dollars per ton as compared to what we saw before, which was in the range of probably $200, $300 per ton, is a huge difference. And that here we're touching the question of affordability in terms of treatment and disposal. And we see that this question of affordability, the financial aspects, are key to maintaining a functional system. Usually systems become erratic and cause a lot of disruption in terms of environment and to communities when although initially well designed, they are financially not sustainable and start reverting to a situation that, let's say, does not allow to run these systems properly. So in this case, the right choice was made according to mainly the financial capacity. And I encourage everyone to understand the fact that money is not the only question. I do understand this. I do acknowledge the fact that there are some options that can be selected according to different settings. But at the end of the day, that system has to be sustainable over the long term. And financial models, financial calculations should be a big part in the choices, in the strategic choices that are made in the sector. So these are pictures of the site, and it's fairly simple. I mean, it's not like the industrial facility that we just saw. It's a fairly robust construction that can be probably built and operated by local firms most of the time. If operation requires a little bit more technology, then it's also good to get the help specifically for the first years of firms with experience in the sector. It's super important to not miss the initial steps. Otherwise, you lose the investment because it all gets out of control and the facility gets damaged, and it's very hard to get the operation back on track. So just a couple comments here. Landfills are very old facilities. I mean, it's not a new technology. What is new is the technologies that you fit on that landfill to make it safer and to make it cleaner. And those technologies are mostly gas capture, landfill gas capture, and leachate treatment. Once you take care of the gas capture and leachate treatment, you take care probably of 95% of the impacts of a landfill. Still, you have to implement these technologies. So in terms of landfill gas capture, what can be done and what was done in Meknes was to capture the landfill gas that comes out of the fermentation process of the waste, take it into a fairly, let's say, simple or classic cleaning system to remove sulfur. And then that gas is sent to that green container that you see on the left of the picture to generate electricity. So that's a fairly straightforward system that is already implemented in some facilities in India to generate electricity from the wet fraction. What's a little different in landfill is that some of that heat, some of that gas will be used to evaporate the leachate, and the rest can also be compressed to be used as vehicular fuel, and that vehicular fuel is used for the trucks bringing the waste to the landfill. And I think now some technologies are really well packaged, safe, and very compact that can be used basically anywhere in any landfill very easily. You see that facility in the picture. It's a fairly, let's say, clean and simple facility where it's easy to maintain, probably fairly easy to operate. However, you see that there is technology implemented there. Here's a diagram of what is at that site. So you see how gas is extracted here. That gas is then sent through that process to generate electricity, to generate compressed natural gas, and also vehicular fuel that you see on the right here. What's the conclusion on advanced landfilling? The conclusion is that disposal is needed. Even a landfill is needed in the most advanced systems to dispose of some of the ashes of the waste to energy facilities. Advanced landfilling has become safe and affordable. Landfills still require experienced contractors for construction, specifically for operation. And landfill gas capture allows for energy recovery and also much lower greenhouse gas emissions. Last case, Colombia. And that one is not about technicalities, it's about the financials. How do you finance all this? Well, Colombia was very much in the situation India is right now. About 10 years ago, they had a lot of illegal dumping going on. They did not have enough money to cover for waste management expenses. I mean, you see on the right the coverage ratio of expenditures versus revenues, and they were covering maybe 2/3, sometimes a little bit more of their expenses. And so that chronic deficit did not allow for one, proper operation, but two, expansion of the sector. There was no possibility to invest there. So they decided to completely reform the fiscal system and create a dedicated fiscal instrument to finance the waste sector. So how did that work? First of all, they did their homework. Excuse me. So that homework consisted in calculating what is the actual cost of waste management. So they divided it into fixed costs and variable costs. And then within the fixed cost, they looked at commercial cost. They looked at fixed cost in terms of costs that do not vary according to the tonnage or the generation of waste. They looked at transportation costs and treatment and disposal costs, which means for the variable costs, they subdivided the collection and transportation and the disposal. The front, middle end, and the back end were separated. So they added all these costs and they had the base cost. And that base cost, they used it. They say, well, if we want to cover this base cost, we have to reflect it in the tariffs. And that makes sense. I mean, any utility would basically do the same thing. So they said, okay, before we reflect this, before we charge households, how do we make sure it's affordable to the households that they can actually pay? So they looked at the spending profile of households and said, okay, household can spend, they do currently spend 0.4% of their income, of their total income on waste management. Let's not increase that percentage, but let's make sure it's properly recovered. And that's the amount they selected to serve as a, let's say, base for affordability was 0.4% of the total income. After that, they was another adjustment made according to the financial capacity of households. So that is basically by subdividing the tariffs into 6 brackets for, and that was not done according to the income. That was done according to the standard of living, i.e. the property value, looking at the property tax. And depending on that property tax, the tariffs were subdivided according to 6 brackets. One was the base tariff for the, let's say, more the poorest households. That's the base tariff minus 50%, and it kind of dovetails all the way through the high income fraction of the population, and for them the tariff is the base tariff plus 66%. So that really allowed for while maintaining the, let's say, affordability or recovering all the costs, the base cost, still have a modulation of that tariff according to the capacity to pay of each household, and making sure that all the social aspects were included and factored into these financial elements. So it's not a simple calculation. There are political choices to be made, but that is very important to make sure that cities have the capacity to finance their operation, but also finance the modernization of the system. So for the recovery, it's also very important to understand that it was not done through the tax, it was done through a utility bill or a specific bill, depending on the city in Colombia. They could, all of them, choose the instrument they wanted to channel that money, but the electricity bill obviously was a very good way to recover those charges, because electricity bill is usually paid for obvious reasons. So that was the change in terms of fiscal instrument, is to switch from the tax that was not always paid, that was not specific to the waste sector, to actually select an instrument that was specific for the waste, allowed for balancing costs and revenues, and would lead to very high recovery rates, financially speaking. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is cost recovery is an important element for being able to modernize the sector and keep it running sustainably, which means subsidies are good, but subsidies do not last. You can have subsidies for 1 year, 2 years, maybe 5 years, but that will not ensure sustainability. That will be help at some point, but will not guarantee sustainability. Tariffs have to take into account affordability, so there is a social component in there, and recovery mechanisms should be effective. The way you bill it, the way it is charged, has to be effective to ensure maximum recovery of those charges. I'm stopping there. That was a lot of talking from my end. I want to thank you for your attention and available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation and for taking us through some of the most innovative solid waste management practices around the world, and also for putting into perspective the kind of investments that goes into these projects. We'll take up questions towards the end of the session. Now, I invite Honorable Mayor Srimati Prasanna Ernest to share her ideas and thoughts on the topic.
Dear Thierry Martin, World Bank Senior Advisor, Mr. U.V. Joss, Deputy Director, KSWMB, and Dr. Ajit Kalir, Director General KILA, and other delegates present in the meeting. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to present before you all the successful project of biomining and land reclamation at Kuriyapura, the Ramsar site in Kollam. ദശാബ്ദങ്ങളായി കുരിപ്പുഴയില് കോർപ്പറേഷന്റെ 5.5 ഏക്കർ സ്ഥലത്ത് കുന്നുകൂടി കിടന്ന 1.5 ലക്ഷം ക്യൂബിക് മീറ്റർ ലെഗസി വേസ്റ്റ് ആണ് ബയോമൈനിങ്ങിലൂടെ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും നിർമ്മാർജ്ജനം ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിച്ചത്. ശുദ്ധവായുവും ശുദ്ധജലവും നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട ഒരു ജനതയെ അവരുടെ ദുരിതപൂർണമായ ജീവിതത്തിൽ നിന്ന് മോചിപ്പിക്കുവാൻ ഈ ബയോമൈനിങ് പദ്ധതിയിലൂടെ കൊല്ലം കോർപ്പറേഷൻ സാധിച്ചു. റാംസർ സൈറ്റിൽപ്പെട്ട അഷ്ടമുടി കായലും തീരവും ഒരുപോലെ മലിനമായിരുന്നു. ബയോമൈനിങ്ങിലൂടെ അവയെ വീണ്ടെടുക്കാനും സാധിച്ചു. ഇന്ത്യയിൽ തന്നെ റാംസർ സൈറ്റിൽപ്പെട്ട അഷ്ടമുടി കായലിന്റെ തീരത്തും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അഷ്ടമുടി കായലിന്റെ മലിനമായിട്ടുള്ള അവസ്ഥയെ മാറ്റിയെടുക്കുന്നതിന് ആദ്യത്തെ ബയോമൈനിങ് ആണ് ഇന്ന് കൊല്ലം കോർപ്പറേഷൻ പൂർത്തീകരിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. കേരളത്തിലെ ആദ്യത്തെ സമ്പൂർണ്ണ സംയോജിത ബയോമൈനിങ് പദ്ധതി കൂടിയാണിത്. വളരെ അഭിമാനത്തോടെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പറയാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നത് ഈ പ്രോജക്റ്റിലൂടെ ഏകദേശം 72,647 ടൺ കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ ആണ് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് കുറയ്ക്കുവാൻ സാധിച്ചത്. ഏതാണ്ട് 89,005 ഏക്കർ സ്ഥലത്ത് 12,02,327 തൈകൾ 10 വർഷം വെച്ച് പിടിപ്പിച്ച് അത് വലുതായി വന്നാൽ മാത്രമേ ഈ 72,647 ടൺ കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ കുറയ്ക്കാൻ സാധിക്കത്തുള്ളൂ. അതാണ് അഭിമാനത്തോടെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പറയാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി സിറ്റി എന്ന നിലയിൽ കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ കുറച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു ന്യൂട്രൽ സിറ്റി, കാർബൺ ന്യൂട്രൽ സിറ്റി ആക്കുന്നതിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് കൂടിയാണ് ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ ഏറ്റെടുത്ത് ഞങ്ങൾ മുന്നോട്ട് പോയിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഈ പ്രവൃത്തി സമയബന്ധിതമായി ഏറ്റെടുത്ത് പൂർത്തീകരിച്ച് വിജയിപ്പിച്ചു തന്നത് സിഗ്മ ഗ്ലോബൽ എൻവയോൺ സൊല്യൂഷൻസ് പ്രൈവറ്റ് ലിമിറ്റഡ് എന്ന കമ്പനിയാണ് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇത് തൃപ്തികരമായി പൂർത്തീകരിച്ചു തന്നിട്ടുള്ളത്. വളരെ അഭിമാനത്തോടുകൂടി ഈ അവസരത്തിൽ സൂചിപ്പിക്കുകയാണ്, മറ്റ് നഗരസഭകൾക്ക്, അതായത് വർഷങ്ങളായി ദശാബ്ദങ്ങളായി കുന്നുകൂടി കിടക്കുന്ന മാലിന്യങ്ങളെ ബയോമൈനിങ്ങിലൂടെ അത് നിർമ്മാർജ്ജനം ചെയ്യുന്നതിനും വരും തലമുറയെ ഈ വലിയ ആപത്തിൽ നിന്ന് രക്ഷിക്കുന്നതിനും ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഈ പ്രോജക്റ്റിലൂടെ സാധിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇതിനുശേഷം a brief presentation and video will follow. Thank you.
Supposed to disable the participant share screen share.
സമയം പോകുന്നല്ലോ.
ജയരാജ് this is the presentation that is following that is reclamation of Kuripura legacy waste.
ഇതൊന്ന് മാറ്റി തരാൻ പറ. Biomedical and scientific colors of legacy waste dumped at Kuripura, 100% removal of legacy waste.
Environment friendly approach and assuring safe and traceable disposal of the waste. History of Kuripura is that Kuripura is historically an ice oil depot which is situated in the banks of Ashtamudi Lake, which is an environment sensitive area and a Ramsar site. The abandoned legacy waste has been taken out due to the protest from the public, as well as the urban National Green Tribunal has given us an mandate that we have to clean all the legacy waste. So we started our process of cleaning the bio waste from our Kuripura dump site. This is the overview of our Kuripura dump site. That is, it is thickly populated area close to our Ramsar site, as well as there are nearby temples and all things are functioning over there. This is the process of biomining. We started our tender process. The tender process has been tender has been opened on 27/1/2021, and 3 participants were there. Those are Citco, Sigma Global, and Socio Environment Unit. The bid participants and the bid opening process are as follows. The tender was opened on 11/2/21.
ഒരു സെക്കൻഡ് ഹോൾഡ് ചെയ്യണേ. ഇത് മാത്രമാണ്, അതായത് മാത്രമേ കാണുന്നുള്ളൂ. ഫുൾ ആദ്യത്തെ പേജ് മാത്രമേ കാണുള്ളൂ, അതിൽ അങ്ങനെ കാണുള്ളൂ, ബാക്കിയൊന്നും ഷെയർ ആയിട്ടില്ല. അപ്പൊ ഇത് എന്താ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്? എന്റെ ഇത് സെലക്ട് ഒന്നുകൂടെ ഷെയർ കൊടുത്തു. ഷെയർ കൊടുക്കുമ്പോൾ ഏറ്റവും മുകളിലായിട്ട് സ്ക്രീൻ 1 ഓപ്ഷൻ
സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ കൊടുക്കുക. അടുത്ത പേര് ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഓ, ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ. So, sorry for the delay. I'm starting from the beginning. Like biomining of legacy waste at Kuripeda has been initiated to remove the 100% of legacy waste and reclaim our land. This is the history of Kuripeda. That is, historically it is a dump soil, night soil depot. Due to the environment sensitive area on the banks of Ashtamani Lake, which is a Ramsar site, we have to remove all the legacy waste from this dump site. And National Game Tribunal has given us an addendum to remove all those waste from this dump site. So this is the constraint we had faced during the processing of the dump site, as it is a thickly populated area and more than 3 temples are nearby. So we started the tender process on 27/1/21. Three participants were there. That is Sitco, Sigma Global, and Socio-Economic Unit had participated. This is the process of our tendering process. Like is technical bid, we put it on a 2 cover stage process as a technical bid, and the technical bid was opened on 25/2/21, and then they done a technical presentation regarding the process that they are going to follow, and that has been taken over by NIT Calicut, and they had done a drone survey of the entire area on 2/3/21. This is the some pictures regarding drone survey, and we had got an administrative sanction, and technical process has been followed. The agreement was signed on 10/7/21 for the starting of biomining. This is the agreement handing over, photo of agreement handing over. Administrative and technical process followed. That is, the layout of the entire place has been taken over by the drone survey. They had put trommels and customized. They had put customized trommels and all in the site, and they done the baseline study, the noise pollution, wastewater quality, on all those things has been collected on 28/21. This is the initial stage of the legacy waste. Biomining has been given authorization by the KSPCB. They have done a technical visit and visited on 10/11/21, and directed the officials to do a total survey to ascertain whether the arrived quantity from this drone survey has been correct or not. This is the board that has been placed on the project site, and the site has been handed over to the Sigma Global by our officials. This is the photo regarding the same. This is the initial stage. That is a drone survey photo of the site. They started the windrowing of the legacy waste. This is the area view of the after the clearance. This is the operation diagram. That is what all they had done. They started their windrowing. They sprayed the bioculture and done the stabilization of the waste. They done the segregation and the process that follows. This is some pictures regarding the same. This is the plant's material diagram. That is what all they had followed during their process. These are the machines that are used for separation. And these are the photos regarding the assembling of the and installation of the machineries. They This is the layout of the machine. This is straw mill that they had used. This is the weighbridge for like. This is the approach. Like they started from the top-down approach for excavation of the waste. This is the project. Like this is how the project processed, and they had done the fencing and all for the. This is the like some photos that are following. Bioculture. Like
They would complete. Measure they would complete the start building legacy.
stack processing of the waste. I will show you a detailed video regarding the same after this presentation. These are the segregates that these are the final segregates.
Partnerships.
Glasses, coconut shells, tires, stones, chapels, woods, ferrous and non-ferrous materials, sand that follow. And they had done the total disposal of the optics. They had provided us all the things regarding the disposal. This is the RDF, disposal of RDF to various cement factories. That's the aerial view of the dump site after the reclamation of the land.
ബാക്കി പ്രസന്റേഷൻ കഴിഞ്ഞ് വീഡിയോ കാണിക്കുന്നു അത് അവിടെ കാണേ സൗണ്ട് ഈ സൗണ്ട് കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റും എക്സാമിന് ചെയർമാൻ അത്യാവശ്യം പങ്കെടുക്കാൻ പറഞ്ഞു ഇന്നലെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു
ഞങ്ങളുടെ തന്നെ കത്ത് പൊതുമരാമത്ത് ഹെൽത്തോട്ട് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു മൂന്നിൽ ആരെങ്കിലും ഒരാൾ പങ്കെടുത്താൽ
ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു ഹെൽത്തോട് ഞാൻ പറയുകയും ചെയ്തു ഇന്നലെ വിളിച്ചേ പറ്റും ഉറക്കം കേൾക്കാൻ സൗണ്ട് ഉറക്കം വെക്കാൻ നിങ്ങളെയൊക്കെ ഫോട്ടോ നോക്കണേ Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for sharing the presentation and giving us a gist of the land reclamation project at Kuripura Ramsar Site. Now I invite UV Joseph, IAS, Deputy Director of KS WMP, to share his insights on the topic.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. Dear Theory, respected Mayor, Mr. Ajit, ladies and gentlemen. Hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, once again, thanks to Theory for giving an excellent presentation, because he has actually given an insight to the new concept of development bands. I'm hearing that for the first time, even though we were together for more than 1 year now. Thierry is the advisor for the KSWMP. So anyway, it's good to hear that, because it make a lot of sense for us to understand the concept of development bands, to actually convince that we will have to actually go through the system from the basics to the zero waste concept. Okay, so we cannot just overnight reach there. So that I think you have conveyed that idea very nicely through this development bands concept. And probably Kerala is now going through mid way. I'll just take you there, where we are. But also you have actually now very clearly shown us the case studies, and it was very relevant in the sense that you were trying to kind of tell us, that's what I understood, that it's not the technology or the plant, whatever. I mean, we can go to any extreme. We have very, very, very modern technology available for waste management, and also we have the traditional methodology or the technology, which is sufficient to manage. But the most important thing is we need to have a system which is affordable. I mean, that's what you are trying to kind of emphasize, not on the technology. Your case studies, you have selected those case studies just to tell us that. That's what I take home from your presentation. So the affordability make a lot of sense. You can dream of anything, but it has to be sustainable, financially sustainable. The user charge, the charges which the people, the citizens have to bear for this has to be affordable. So you have conveyed that very nicely, and then finally told us on the Colombia experience on cost recovery calculation. I think one of the things which we don't normally take care is such things. So we just take things arbitrarily. I mean, the 50 rupees, 100 rupees, etc., which we are actually now taking, and that is that we may do that applicable to everyone in the same manner, without any differentiating factor based on their capacity to pay. So you have made an excellent case study on that system. Thanks a lot that. And again, the Kuripura model of biomining is one of its kind, one of the unique project which has been taken by any ULB in the state, and which is forming, which is actually giving confidence in taking of more projects, similar projects. In fact, today in this office, at now the technical committee for the 19 dump site remediation is happening, and what is the model is again the Kuripura. So very nice work done by Kollam, and congratulations for that. Now my effort here is just to make some Kerala context, because no one was actually now getting into that. So I thought I will just take you through a little bit. I mean, another 10 minutes. I will just try to take you through the context, Kerala context, especially the urban context and solid waste management, because now we are dealing with the urban local bodies in the state. Now, if you actually see the scenario, the solid waste management scenario in the state, we may be able to now divide that into three eras. One is the pre-Velapil Shala, okay, closure of Velapil Shala, which happened in late 2011. Yeah, so from before 2012, that is the before the closure of Velapil Shala, and then the significant, the things which had happened now recently, the Brahmapuram fire. So Velapilshala closure and Brahmapuram fire now, as becoming two milestones, in the this thing, in dividing the entire, um, activities, dividing the era three into three. So, pre-Velapilshala, Velapilshala to Brahmapuram, and after Brahmapuram. Okay, that is after 2023 March. What is happening now? The pre-Valapilshala, in fact, the Kerala was actually now banking upon most of the traditional things like the centralized plants, which were used elsewhere also nationally as well as internationally. The centralized plant, and then trying to kind of address the waste management through that, especially the compost plants. And till that, it was, you are seeing the dump site which was there in Kuripura. Similar dump sites were there everywhere, most of the places, most of the cities, major cities. And then it was actually, trying to convert that into kind of getting into the composting, centralized composting. But once the closure, after seeing the closure of Velapil Chala, a complete shift from the centralized to decentralized system had happened actually in the state. The entire focus was, complete 360-degree turn from centralized to decentralized. And decentralized, when we say decentralized, now again, it was, the focus was, managing at source. So we tried last almost more than 10 years now, from 2012 to kind of 2022. We have been in that era, looking solutions, solving the issue of solid waste management through decentralized system. There, more emphasis was on the source level treatment of bio, and then green protocol, propagating green protocol to reduce the waste, etc. A lot of work has been done. Kerala is known for campaigns, and a lot of good work has happened, with the leadership of very able leadership like Thomas Isaac sir and Steve, and people have really owned it and then took it. The local bodies, very powerful local bodies. Kerala is known for the local self-government, and they have been actually trying to, get into that. But the emphasis was, to me, the emphasis was more on campaigns, and supplying of the household level bins, etc. Pipe or whatever, different models, and the emphasis was on that. And there was no real focus on sustainable infrastructure and system building. Okay, and again, bio was completely thought of managing at source, and non-bio Okay, they have, they had system. We have actually devised system to take care of the more problematic waste, the non-biodegradable. The MCF, RRFs, etc., were conceived, and then few municipality they have done well, and some of them they have just done for the sake of doing. Some of them were very poor in doing. But overall, if you say, um, it was we were doing it, but then basically it was not really successful. I mean, the system was not there, whether. That's why the presentation given by theory on two, you should have a full-fledged system. The waste should be taken care of through source level or centralized, or whatever. There has to be a system to take care of the thing, which was actually missing. They are trying to do, but then they were not nowhere near to the satisfactory level. None of the municipality, none of the local bodies were reaching. There are exemptions. There are really exemptions. Few panchayats and urban local bodies doing pretty good work, but not up to the expected level. And the uh, one big thing which was missing is the disposal facility. There was absolutely no disposal facility, no landfill, no scientific landfill, or no waste to energy plant, no not even a cement plant which can actually take care of the inert. So things were actually going in a very very hazardous manner. And so that was, and the agencies who have been taking the waste, there are a lot of agencies who have been doing the forward linkages of the inert, but then it was not really monitored to understand where exactly is the final destination. So there were gaps. Even though we were trying, there were always gaps. Now, what happened after the fire which has happened in Brahmapuram, and the fire at Brahmapuram definitely is the result of all these things which I said. So now after Brahmapuram fire, now there were campaign. Now everybody know that we are in the midst of a campaign, Malinimuktam Navageralam. It's but that campaign is very different. What I am actually seeing is this campaign is very different from the earlier campaigns. Here, we are actually divided that into phases, and we are actually now running into the part two, from June to now we are actually now into the phase two of the campaign, where the focus is infrastructure development and system building. That is where the difference is. So now everyone is now talking on the infrastructure. What is infrastructure needed, and what are the systems which is to be made to sustain the to see that the system sustains. So that sea change is happening now. So we the Kerala is in a very very critical stage of solid waste management, I can say. Now I am very sure that if you ask any urban local body chairperson, okay, he or she will be able to tell that what is the quantum of waste generated in that particular urban local body. This was not the case earlier, before 3 months before, no. But now everyone will tell, it is there in their fingertip, that what is the quantum of waste, and that too in tons per day. So they know that the unit is tons per day, and they know how much is being produced by different categories, households and institutions, and all that. They know that, and they know what how much is managed. That is very important. Okay, they know how much is managed. So, and they know that the waste is categorized into two. mainly into two, the bio and non-bio. And what is the quantum of bio? What is the quantum of non-bio? And what are the measures which each ULB is doing for managing bio? What are the measures, which each ULB is doing for managing non-bio? All these numbers are there in their fingertip. You can check. Now, every chairperson, and that is a sea change. That's a sea change. And only then now, you can. So they know the gap, how much is managed and what are their gaps. And understanding their gap is actually half the solution. So, once you understand what is required, then half the solution. Then what is needed? They need money, they need people, they need time to kind of solve that. So all these things are now, as far as the urban local bodies are concerned, I can confidently tell that the Kerala solid waste management project, which is a 300 million US dollars, almost 2,400 crore project, which is there up to the time period is up to 2027 June. uh, with this project we will be able to actually solve the infrastructure and system issues, taking care of environmental and social safeguard. I am within court, I want to insist that, because so far, the solid waste management sector might not have thought of the social and environmental safeguard issue, but this project take care of that. So with this much money, 300 million US dollars, and very importantly, money is not enough. If money is coming from different places, our minister always used to tell, money is not the problem of solid waste management. Money is plenty, is available. It's available, on fund, state plan fund, from central government on different schemes, international funding, all these available. These are available for urban local bodies. But I think the most important missing point was the technical person to deal with, the human resource, the required human resource. So far, Kerala has been actually now banking. So far, Kerala, was not considering solid waste management as a technical issue. To resolve the problem, we need technical people. So it was more on campaigns, and now the technical people, the technical resource, the KSWMP, the Kerala Solid Waste Management Project now has more than 300, it's around 300 to 400 technical person who are qualified and experienced are there in the state, and they are there in each urban local body. So with the technical person and with the money and enough time to kind of, the project is up to 2027, but we are not going to that end. The urban local body level infrastructure, we are actually thinking of building it in another 1 or 2 years, based on a plan. I am an urban planner basically. So, this is a forum, which discuss the urbanization problems. And, today we are discussing urbanization and solid waste management. I can say that without a plan, without knowing what is the gap and how to address the gap through a scientifically made plan, solid waste management master plan, we won't be able to actually reach to that final level of satisfaction. We cannot reach there. So here the project emphasize the need of the plan. And I am very happily, I can actually say that by October this year, all the 93 urban local bodies in the state will have a solid waste management plan, scientifically made through a lot of consultation for the first time in the state. And then based on that plan, the infrastructure building up and the sustainable system building up will happen. So I'm sure that this discussion will give a lot of confidence to the people who are listening, in in having a bright future for Kerala in solid waste management sector. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for putting into perspective Kerala's solid waste management situation, all-encompassing solid waste management plan. Now, or if there's anything on the chat box here.
Okay, okay. Uh, um, so Martin, there is one question to you, which has come in the YouTube. So this is regarding the Marcel plant, the plant where they were inquiring about the cost of the maintenance cost and whether there was any attempt to change the consumption pattern.
That's a good question. So in terms of operating expenses for that integrated system, we are looking at probably something near $100 million per year. And that is covered by user charges almost entirely, as discussed. So consumption patterns is a good question. The consumption patterns typically for the past 30 years, let's say waste reduction at source through bringing down consumption has had very little success. Because what that would mean, and I suspect that's the main issue, is that people would have to consume less, and that's not good for the economy. I think no business and let's say no state in general is interested in seeing consumption and spending go down, because it basically would take down the GDP, it would take down the growth. And I think most of the policies that we see are economically driven, including at state level, and consumption, it plays a great part in economic growth. That's why we see a lot more efforts put downstream, treating the waste, probably designing some of the products, but we've seen very little effect of the different policies in actually reducing consumption. I think some people have become aware of the fact that they should not buy too much plastics, that they should consume differently. But what you see on the ground is not significantly different, which means in overall terms, in average, we don't see waste composition shifting in a way that would reflect that sort of awareness. Just to be clear, much of the waste that is generated is driven by the market, is not really driven by the consumer. And although we may not want plastics or would like to see more desirable alternatives, we still go for the cheapest, for the easiest, and for what the market provides. And the market so far has been heavily relying and is probably relying more and more on plastics. So I'm just talking about that fraction. The other fractions are probably less problematic and have followed basically the same pattern, just to answer the question as clearly as possible. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I'm sure there will be some questions before any. I don't see anyone has written anything, but maybe they will ask these questions directly. Before that, let me quickly ask you if you could kindly reflect on, how the new knowledge which is coming from behavioral science, behavioral economics, can be helpful in because ours is a very unique context. We have small land, um, density of population is quite high, and we are also rapidly transitioning into a high growth urban society. So there will be various aspects which need to be addressed while planning, while governing. And would you be able to give some thoughts on how the learning from behavioral science and behavioral economics can be used here? Do you think that will have any relevance for our context?
Well, very simply speaking, if we look at what sort of drivers are available to modify behavior of consumers, we have market-based instruments such as taxes on specific products that could modify the consumption patterns, that could modify the approach to various products depending on what are their post-consumer costs, which would mean for the consumer or society in general to have the consumer internalize the cost of disposal. That, in my opinion, is coming. We see a lot of products that today are not recyclable being taxed or looked at in a way that tends to say, let's have what we call extended producer responsibility, so that they don't, so that producers or generators or manufacturers don't leave the cost of disposing or recycling entirely to society. But how will that play at large scale? It's difficult to say, because these policies, once again, tend to apply costs to products and are seen as basically hurting the economy. So I know that governments in general are very reluctant at taxing specific products or specific streams of products such as plastics, because plastic has a lot of value for society, just for packaging, for transportation, for just making it available to consumers. How can we move away from that addiction? How can we change behaviors? I would say step number one, the easiest in terms of policy, is really to add a tax or some form of fee for putting these products on the market, for when buying these products as well, making these conscious choices, and also to provide some funding for the disposal or the recycling. So the best instrument to change behaviors is still money. When we start paying for something, we start thinking. After that, I know that there was some social engineering attempts to change behaviors, including in KILA. I think India has that capacity to actually change behaviors, because people do understand the need for it. I'm afraid that it will not happen homogeneously. I think the country is growing fast, and I think the target today is probably not to change behaviors, but to achieve what we call green growth, which, in my opinion, is super important for India to make sure that we create jobs, to make sure that we create wealth, to make sure that all this is environmentally and sustainable and socially sustainable. How will this translate in terms of waste? I think it will not translate in major changes in terms of consumption patterns and how waste is generated. I think it will translate in what we just discussed, which is paying for a better system to sort, recycle, and dispose of waste, and will probably not come very fast from individual behaviors. I still believe in it, but Dr. Ajit, just to be clear with you, it's a generation thing. It's not going to be our generation. It's going to be the next generation. And so these changes do not occur in a visible way at our time scale. So I think if we have to do something in terms of changing behaviors, just to conclude, I'm sorry to take that long, but it's a very interesting topic, is to work with the new generation, with the young generation. They are the ones who can make a change in that situation. I think the current generation will not be able to make these changes happen. They can plant the seeds, they can set up the proper mechanism, but they will not achieve major behavioral changes. And I should know, because I've been in that sector for 30 years, and I've seen behaviors change only through generations, not within one generation very much. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. There are a lot of participants here. I think we still have about 37 people who have been listening and kind of wanting to be involved in this. If there are questions, we'll be happy to kind of, we have about 10 more minutes. And if Mr. Martin has some time, we can also stretch a bit in case if that is possible. So the floor is open. This we could have questions from all our esteemed guests. ആർക്കെങ്കിലും ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ആവാം. ഒരു 10 മിനിറ്റ് കൂടെ ഉണ്ട്. വളരെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു സെഷനും ഡിസ്കഷനും ആയിരുന്നു. അതുകൊണ്ട് തീർച്ചയായും ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാവും എന്നുള്ള വിശ്വാസത്തിലാണ്. I wanted to understand that in the decentralized treatment facility, the waste was. മാഡം ഒന്ന് ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്ത് പറയാം, കൃത്യമായിട്ട് ചോദ്യം മനസ്സിലായില്ല.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to understand that the waste processing that was happening in the first example, that Marcel example. So was it was a mixed waste, or was it a sorted waste, like plastic waste and dry waste was separated, or was it a mixed waste? Because in India, we have a lot of problems of mixed waste, and then treating mixed waste is a very complex and, consuming exercise.
I think Martin will respond to that. I think they brought in as mixed waste, but then there was some segregation process. Martin, would you like to quickly respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question. Initially, the idea 20 years back was that by setting up dual stream collection, i.e. by providing households with 2 bins, we could perfectly separate the wet waste from the dry waste. Unfortunately, in very dense and very large cities, collecting 2 bins separately and having people adhere to that scheme was, proved impossible, which means in some areas there is good separation, meaning dry recyclables are separated from at household level, and so that provides for a good clean stream of dry recyclables, but only a small fraction. And so in the mixed waste that is not separated, there's still a lot of value to be recovered. And so that plant is really to separate these different fractions. What can be used as organics, what can be used for RDF or generation of electricity, and what still has market value, such as metals. So just to answer briefly, that facility addresses the fact that in large cities, household level segregation is far from perfect. For some reason, the population and the system does not allow for perfect separation at source. and that plant was designed to make up for, let's say, the possibility or the difficulties in separating streams at household level. And it's indeed designed to deal with mixed waste, not entirely mixed waste, because you saw that some dry recyclables were taken out at source, but far from the totality of these streams with value are extracted. So it's really to compensate for the complexity of having good source segregation processes in place, specifically in very, very large cities. And I think that's also a reflection for India. India is going for urbanization. And I think this is a sign that we have to also understand preemptively. Urbanization will lead to different behaviors, will lead to people probably having less time, less interest in segregating, less conscious of their environment because they're busy, because life changes when you're in a city. And we have to account for this in the system we design, probably moving more towards in large cities, once again, mixed waste processing instead of pushing for very high level of household level segregation. At least that's what we observed in many countries. Over.
Thank you, Martin. That would be an excellent solution for India, because this is one thing with which we are struggling across cities, particularly big cities. So let us explore more and see, like in the climate of India, how much this technology would be working towards recovering optimized value. Thank you, Ajit.
If there are no more questions, we can. I can see Kozhikode, Mayor from Kozhikode also. Madam, would you like to make some intervention?
I'm so sorry, Ajit, because I'm a latecomer. I had our, what I would say, an urban center evening OP to be inaugurated. So I came late, but I've been listening to you for more than 10 minutes. And I appreciated Mr. Martin's conclusion, but I have a point of disagreement, Mr. Martin, because you said that in the urban space, people are not that eager to segregate the waste. But in our opinion, in our urban spaces, people are more conscious of the climate change, more conscious of the need to change their behavior, and they are fully cooperating. Most of them are cooperating, because yesterday I went to a place where they were telling me, because the corporation is collecting all the waste, all type of waste from them, this year they did not have any problem of flooding, because all their drains and the small rivulets were all cleared, because there was not much plastic waste thrown out. So that way, I think urban people are more conscious of their living, more conscious of the need to change their behavior. That's all.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any further questions? I think that is one. Okay, Sujit is asked. Sujit, would you like to ask directly? Sujit, would you like to speak directly, or do you want me to read it out? Okay, so Mr. Martin, do you have some more time? There's one more question which has this.
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, in Kerala, a lot of resistance from people against user fee collection. It's basically about the user fee. And the person who has raised the question is a municipal secretary. So he's someone who is trying to kind of moderate this expectation from both sides. So he's asking what's the experience in other parts of the world, and how can we overcome this problem of user fee collection, user fee payment?
Now, that's a good point. So user fee has to go with proper services and new services, which means when you introduce a user fee, in parallel, you have to implement some proper services. You have to make clear that you're providing a service, that service cannot be free like any other service. And so that type of information, that sort of dialogue and discourse has to be introduced. And I would compare it to utilities. When you want to be connected to the electrical network, when you want to be connected to the water network, you pay. You pay for a subscription, and then you pay for the electricity you consume. It should be exactly the same for waste. Waste management is not for free, very much like any other utility. And so there should be a user fee. Now, that has not been the prevailing discourse. I mean, I think in India, and specifically in Kerala, that service was understood to be a free service. And I think we have to change that vision. That service is obviously not free, specifically if we intend to set up modern facilities. And so changing that mentality that waste management is a free service, to me, has to evolve. And Dr. Ajit was mentioning about the communication, about changing behaviors. I think that's probably the first behavior that has to be changed, because I don't know of many services that are free. And in this case, that one, if we intend to make it more efficient, if we intend to make it greener, if we intend to create jobs through it, that service cannot be for free. Over.
Thank you again. I think we are almost close to 2 hours. I don't think there are too many questions, so we will now bring it to an end. It was quite early for Mr. Martin to start with. Did you start at 7 a.m. possibly?
It was 6:30 DC time, but
so thank you
that's a
so
good
much.
way to start the week.
Great, but thank you so much for being so kind to start that early. We woke you up too early, but we had a great session listening to your perspectives, your experiences, and learning, which is directly relevant for us. So both the discussants, the Honorable Mayor of Kollam, as well as Mr. UV Jose, who are leading these efforts in translating many of these ideas into the local solutions in Kerala, they also could join. I think collectively we have some advanced thinking now, and I think we had about 62 participants. I believe some of them are in groups also. So various municipal people from various urban local governments, chairpersons and secretaries and other officials were sitting and listening to this entire discourse. There were other colleagues from various academic and policy partners. So I think collectively there is some we have more one bit further in terms of our shared understanding. So without taking too much of time, I'll just thank you once again for sparing your valuable time and sharing your knowledge with us. And again, it's to be on record, I also would like to thank the Honorable Mayor of Kollam and also also Mr. UV Jose for facilitating your participation, your availability today with such a short notice. Just about a week's time, he reached out and he offered to help us while we were looking for a speaker with knowledge and experience. So thanking all three of the speakers for being here, spending 2 hours with us, and the leadership at Local Self-Government LSCD Kerala, Additional Chief Secretary, and all the officials who have been very supportive of this. This was a vision of the Honorable Minister that as part of Kerala urban policy formulation, we should deliberate with people from various parts of the country and world. What are the key challenges in rapidly urbanizing society experience, and how do we kind of address them? How do we create solutions which are creative enough, but also practically achievable? So from that vision, we started building this entire dialogue series, and we have now about 10 policy partners and 10 national academic partners, all of them who have been a part of this discussions at various stages. We would like to thank all of them in whatever way they could participate today. Some of them have been online, some of them have been watching through other means of YouTube and FB. Similarly, our local government institutions, the mayors, chairpersons, and as well as various elected representatives, officials, and colleagues from various stakeholder agencies across Kerala, and all of them who sat through, who helped in making this a relevant platform. On behalf of KILA, I would like to thank all of them. Our Director General was supposed to be here in the beginning and share his perspective as we started, but since he was traveling, he regretted his inability to be there. So with that, we would like to bring this to an end. Thank you again. Next in the dialogue series will be hosted by our academic partner, IIT Kharagpur, the Department of Architecture and Planning. We'll soon let all of you know the date and the time, but it's going to be within the next 2 to 3 weeks time. The August session of the dialogue series will be hosted by IIT Kharagpur. So thank you and hope to see you all back again in the next session. Thank you, Thierry Martin, again. And
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Ajit, for the invitation.
Thank you.
It was a great pleasure. Great honor. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Joe, sir, thank you.
Thank you, Ajit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. When. Madam, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Close, Yana.
Okay, okay. Thank you.